She hit the floor, the whistle never blew, and by the time the league admitted it was wrong, the damage was already done. This is the real documented story of how a rookie became the center of the biggest officiating fight in WNBA history, and why, 2 years later, nobody has actually fixed it. Before this video is over, you're going to hear the exact words a WNBA commissioner said when a 2-time MVP runner-up asked her to fix this. And it is not what you think a commissioner should say. Stay with me, because that moment alone explains almost everything that's happened since. If you want the real story, backed by what was actually said and actually reported, not recycled rumors, subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're about to go through 2 full years of this, piece by piece. The play that started it, June 1st, 2024, Indiana Fever, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Chicago Sky guard Chennedy Carter had just made a basket. The play was over. The ball was dead. And as Caitlin Clark turned to get open for the inbound pass, Carter shifted off the ball entirely and drove her shoulder and hip into Clark, sending her to the floor. In real time, officials called a common foul. Nothing more. It took a league review the next day for the WNBA to upgrade it to a flagrant one. Clark's own words after the game were simple. "That's just not a basketball play." She said she had to play through it, because that's what basketball at this level demands. Carter didn't back down. Asked about it afterward, she refused to answer, telling reporters, "I ain't answering any Caitlin Clark questions." Days later, she said she had no regrets, that she was going to compete no matter who she was playing against, and that she was fine taking the heat for it. Here's the detail that turned a hard foul into a national story. Sky rookie Angel Reese was seen reacting with visible enthusiasm on the bench as Clark hit the deck, and Clark's own Fever teammates didn't step in. Not in the moment. That absence became its own headline, with critics, including former NBA champion Matt Barnes, publicly calling out the Fever for not having their rookies back. The Sky's head coach at the time, Teresa Weatherspoon, put out a statement calling it a heat-of-the-moment mistake, saying she and Carter had talked about it and agreed it wasn't appropriate. That was the extent of the institutional response. A statement, no suspension, a foul upgrade after the fact, once the clip had already gone viral. Engagement beat. Now here's the pattern I want you to hold on to for the rest of this video, because it repeats itself almost exactly more than once over the next 2 years. Hard contact, no whistle in the moment. Then, only after public outrage forces a second look, a quiet upgrade. Watch for it, because it comes back. The rookie year narrative takes shape. The Carter play wasn't an isolated incident. It was the moment that gave the Caitlin Clark gets targeted storyline its shape. Throughout that rookie season, Clark absorbed hard screens, off-ball contact, and physical defense that a lot of analysts and former players said crossed from competitive into something else. The counter-argument existed just as loudly, that Clark was a rookie earning her stripes in a physical league the way every rookie before her had, and that singling out any one player for protection sets a bad precedent. Both sides had real support inside the league. That tension, physicality as tradition versus physicality as a safety failure, is the engine that's driven this entire 2-year saga, and it still hasn't been resolved. The escalation. Fast forward. And the incidents didn't stop. In a game against the Connecticut Sun, Jacy Sheldon poked Clark in the eye, and as Clark reacted, Marina Mabrey shoved her to the floor. In the moment, officials called only a technical foul, and Mabrey stayed in the game. Once again, the league went back afterward, upgraded it to a flagrant 2, and added a fine, no suspension. Then came the play that finally pulled Congress into a basketball officiating dispute. June 24th, during a loose ball sequence, Phoenix Mercury forward Alyssa Thomas made contact with her fist to Clark's throat. No foul was called on the floor. The league reviewed it afterward, upgraded it to a flagrant foul, and suspended Thomas for 1 game for what the league itself described as recklessly making contact with her fist. Clark left that game with a back injury and missed the next 2 contests. Thomas, for her part, called the whole thing a complete accident and said afterward that she'd received death threats over it. Clark and her head coach, Stephanie White, both publicly condemned the threats directed at Thomas, even while continuing to argue that the officiating itself needed to change. Suspense beat. And this is where it stopped being just a basketball story. Because 2 weeks after that play, something landed on a WNBA executive's desk that had never happened in the history of the league. The letter. 11 members of the U.S. House Republican Study Committee sent a letter directly to WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. Their argument: with millions of casual fans now tuning in because of Clark, the league had an obligation to do more than issue statements after the fact. Longtime Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley had already been publicly pressing the league on the same issue. When you have a sitting senator and a congressional committee weighing in on missed whistles, you know the story has outgrown the box score completely. The league's response to the letter, at least publicly, was silence for weeks. The other side of the argument now, it would be dishonest to present this as one-sided, because it genuinely isn't. A large and vocal group of current and former players pushed back hard on the idea that Clark was being uniquely targeted. 11-year veteran and 2-time champion Sydney Colson said flatly on ESPN's WNBA Countdown that she did not think the Thomas play was a flagrant foul at all, that she grew up in an era of the league that was far more physical, and that this barely registered by comparison. That's the real fault line here. It's not really about any single player. It's a generational divide between a veteran contingent that grew up wearing bruises as a badge of pride in this league and a newer, increasingly loud group of stars pushing for what they call freedom of movement, a cleaner, more skill-focused style of play. Every single officiating controversy since has been filtered through that same divide. Then things got even more uncomfortable. USA Today columnist Nancy Armour published a piece arguing that Clark's visible frustration with no calls, the arms in the air, the public complaints, the exaggerated reactions to draw whistles, wasn't just annoying anymore. Armour's argument was that this behavior gives cover to a segment of fans who then direct racial abuse and threats at the league's predominantly black players. That column set off its own firestorm, separate from the on-court incidents entirely. Engagement beat. I want to pause here and ask you something, because I genuinely want to know where you land on this. Do you think a player's on-court reactions can be responsible, even indirectly, for how fans behave online? Drop your answer in the comments, because this is one of the most argued points in the entire saga, and I read every single one of them. What the league actually did. So what did the WNBA actually do with all of this pressure? Not nothing, but not enough, according to almost everyone still complaining today. After the 2025 finals, where officiating had become the dominant storyline, Engelbert announced she was convening a dedicated task force separate from the normal competition committee. It included head coaches Cheryl Reeve, Stephanie White, and Becky Hammon. Officials were put on formal grading systems, with performance tied directly to playoff assignments. Engelbert also announced the league would build a full replay center by 2027, modeled on the NBA's. On paper, that sounds like real reform. In practice, the 2026 season opened with foul rates and free throw attempts spiking sharply compared to the year before, up from roughly 17.5 fouls a game to over 22. 5 games in the first 11 of the season alone saw a team attempt 25 or more free throws. Coaches who sat on the task force itself were confused by their own reforms. Cheryl Reeve, who helped build the plan, told reporters she was confused because the task force had talked about cutting unnecessary physicality, not calling every marginal foul. Breanna Stewart called the new whistle rate insane, saying it disrupted everyone's flow. So even the fix became controversial. The moment that defines this whole story. And now, here's that moment I promised you at the start of this video. At an event called Unrivaled back in February, Minnesota Lynx star Napheesa Collier, a 5-time All-Star and back-to-back MVP runner-up, sat across from Cathy Engelbert and asked her directly how she planned to fix the league's officiating problems. According to Collier, Engelbert's response was this: "Only the losers complain about the refs." Collier didn't let that go. Months later, in her exit interview, she went public with it and didn't hold back. She said the real threat to the league wasn't money, ratings, or even missed calls. It was a lack of accountability from the league office itself. She said she'd earned the platform to speak for the players and the fans who deserve better, and that the WNBA currently has the best players and the best fans in the world, paired with what she called the worst leadership in the world. That is about as direct a public accusation as a star player can level at her own commissioner. Where Clark stands now. Through all of this, Clark herself has mostly tried to play it down in public, even while clearly showing her frustration in the moment. She's continued to call for full-time, dedicated officiating crews as the failures have piled up. She's currently putting up a career-high scoring average while ranking near the top of the league in assists, and she leads the league in technical fouls this season, which tells you the tension between her and officials hasn't gone anywhere. Even Clark's own coach has tried to draw a careful line in public, saying not every foul is a bad foul, and not every hard foul is a bad person, but that some plays are simply flagrant, and that's all they are. Suspense beat. But here's the question. Nobody in the league office has actually answered yet, and it's the one this entire story keeps circling back to. The unresolved question. Is this actually about protecting players? Any players? All players? Or is it about protecting the WNBA's biggest financial asset? Because both things are true at once, and the league has never had to publicly choose between them before Clark forced the issue. Every incident we just walked through, the hip check, the eye poke and shove, the throat contact, the congressional letters, the task force, the foul rate spike, Collier's accusation, all of it comes back to that same unresolved tension. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you think the WNBA has actually made real progress since 2024? Or has it just traded one problem, missed calls, for a new one, a whistle that's now blown too often? Is Clark being protected, or is the league still reacting only after the clips go viral? Put your answer in the comments below, because this story is nowhere near finished, and the next incident that forces the league's hand could happen any night this season. If you want to be here when it does, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on, because we will be covering it the moment it happens, with the real reporting, not the noise.